Hello and welcome to the Arrow McLaren Debrief. This time we're looking back at Texas, and I'm delighted to be joined by Pato Award and Alexander Rossi. Let's start with the condensed timetable. And what was it like to be out on track at 8 a.m.? That must have taken you way back to your junior Formula days. Let's start with you, Alex.
Yeah, man, I felt like it was GP3 all over again. But it was the same for everyone, obviously. It was a little strange that we had to start so early, but that was kind of the situation. So we had a 1 hour practice straight into qualifying. And what was unique about this weekend was in the past couple of years at Texas, it's been Parc Fermé rules. So essentially everyone was qualifying their race car in terms of the race setup. This year, Indycar allowed a 30-minute work window to happen after qualifying. So you could try and be pretty aggressive in qualifying and then have time to switch your car back over for the race. And I think the team did a really phenomenal job of preparing that. And the results showed in qualifying with having, 3 cars in the top 5.
Yeah, we'll touch on that. 3 cars in the top 5. First time back on a super speedway for 10 months. What was it like, Pato, to be back in the car? And you had a really good package very early on in the weekend.
It was awesome, man. I've always enjoyed Texas, not because it was my first win there in IndyCar, but just genuinely, I just think we've got, as good of a package as anybody else out there. And every time we go there, we know that we're going to have a strong race car. And it was no different this weekend. We rolled off really, really strong. And like Alex said, hats off to the guys. The amazing work that they did pre-event in giving us great race cars to just start the weekend. That already gets you, in such a better spot than if you really have to move a lot of things around in practice, because there's not a lot of practice time. So that was fantastic. 3 cars in the top 5 in qualifying, and then in the race, I was very comfortable with my car. I could put it wherever I wanted to, and I was a bit bummed to see, honestly, Alex get that penalty. That was very uncalled for, in my opinion. That was not. That shouldn't have been even, close to being a penalty. And I guess it is what it is. But I think, we all had the chance to, I understand in Texas there's not a podium, it's just a winner. But I think we all could have, challenged for the win,
Yeah, and we'll come on to that contentious penalty shortly when we talk about the race and all the things that have come after that. Carl Kirkwood getting all kinds of hate mail on social media, such is the modern way when you have a fallout on the public stage. But just back to qualifying, you're still settling into a new home, Alex. Now, you were at St. Pete. That's obviously a street course package. You're very strong on the ovals. What was it like to sample the Arrow McLaren package and the Chevrolet on the super speedway and actually, from a confidence perspective, be so quick early on?
Yeah, it was one of the races that, I had circled on the calendar from when we made this decision to make the switch over to Arrow McLaren, that their track record and their previous results, just speak for themselves. So I was really excited to, kind of see what it was like. You always have this hope that it's as good as you think it is, but you never really know until you get on track. And man, within a lap and a half, it was like it's just a fantastic race car. There's really nothing else to say. You didn't really change. I didn't change anything. The whole weekend, aside from going from kind of a qualifying setup to a race setup. There was nothing really to adjust. And as a driver, when you have that kind of, trust and confidence in the car that you're in, it just makes everyone's life easier. It's a very stress-free weekend from a engineering standpoint. And you just kind of are waiting until the next session comes and you get an opportunity to go out there and kind of continue to prove yourself. So Texas has been a struggle for me the past couple of years. We've had some good results there, but from a luck standpoint, if you will, we haven't finished really very many races at Texas, but more than that, like the last time I qualified in the top 3 at Texas was 2017. So it was fantastic to, get into this car, and it met all of the hopes and dreams that I had for it.
I think from a luck standpoint, someone tweeted in saying if Alexander Rossi bought a rubber duck in Texas, it would sink. And that's very much the way of the land right now. It's interesting from my perspective, just you talking about the changes there, because there were 3 different technical elements that the teams could bring in to this weekend. And there's been a lot of talk about, yes, opening up the second lane and getting away from that sort of NASCAR resin, but the extra downforce played its part as well. And what was that like from a driver's perspective to have that extra grip?
I think that there's 3 people that we have to thank, honestly. So number 1 is Will Power for his kind of incessant push of we have to do a dedicated highline practice. And that's for 2 reasons. 1, it's yes, to put some rubber down up there, but 2, it's really just to give people confidence in a no pressure environment that like you can use lane 2. It's been so bad for so many years. Like it's understandable that people don't really want to try it and destroy a race car. So we have Will to thank for that. IndyCar, we've been pushing them for ever, it seems like, but specifically the last couple of years, that we need more downforce on the super speedways. And this year is kind of really the first year that they took that to heart and gave us a big chunk for Texas. They're giving us a big step again for Indianapolis. So I think that, this kind of proved that decision was correct. And then we also have to give credit to Firestone, because even if IndyCar wants to add downforce, Firestone has to approve the extra load that's on the tire. And there's a lot of testing that goes into that behind the scenes, because the last thing they want is, if you add a couple hundred pounds of downforce, you're going to start to have tire failures and all that sort of thing. So everyone really bought into the belief that we have to make the speedway racing better. Even though we have only 2 of them on the calendar, it's an important part of what IndyCar racing is. And I think Texas was the perfect kind of combination of all of that. And a huge shout out to everyone who made it possible.
And it was a real show. Just talking about that show, Pato, were you racing those opening laps with a huge smile on your face? Because it was wild from a commentary perspective, but just as a fan watching on, you couldn't take your eyes off those opening few laps. And, from a driver's perspective, did you think it was going to be that wild in terms of, right, that second lane is on and we're running 2 by 2, 3 deep sometimes?
Yes. Since practice, what was it? Last practice. Sorry, it's very condensed schedule. I think we had 1 practice and qualify. Okay, anyways, last practice. I just felt like obviously you could run the second lane a lot more than the years prior, like big time. And I told everybody it's going to be a great show tomorrow, whether you like it or you don't. And to me, it kind of felt like Iowa. Completely different track. Going way, way, way faster. But the way that you could kind of like move around and fight people with 2 lanes, like it felt like an Iowa. It felt like a speedway bull ring. And that's just made for great racing. Like, I don't think anybody that was there and people watching on TV, I don't think one person was like, oh, that's boring. Like, I guarantee you everyone was on the edge of their seat. Like, inside of the car, it's unexplainable how freaking cool it feels. But I rewatched the race yesterday when I was in the airport. And I watched the whole thing. Like, I usually kind of skip through. But it was good. It was really, really good.
I think Scott McLaughlin said the same thing. Normally he just skips through and he watched the whole thing. And from a fan perspective, you know, the noise on social media and just the sort of big names in the sport coming out going, if you're not watching this, get this on. This is a heck of a show. Right, I have to talk about it. Pato's already touched about it. That pit stop, Alex, you were probably none the wiser. You can't see him, right? There's just no way you can see Kyle Kirkwood.
No.
Here, let me comment, because Alex is part of the incident. This is my view as another racing driver, because I've had a very similar situation happen, and it was in Mid-Ohio 2021, I believe, when someone is in the fast lane, and every car basically went into the pits. Everybody's guys are out, right? When one guy is in the fast lane, it's your job to look into the area that you're about to go into to see if there's guys in, out, stopped. You need to be aware of that. Alex was released before the car on the outside lane was even up to Alex's box. So I've had that situation happen to me before, where it was actually even tighter than what Alex and Kyle had. It was with Marcus. I had already committed, and then they launched him. Halfway through, I stomped on the brakes, and there's really no other way you need to do it. It's bad luck that someone got released right when you had to go into your pit, and you suck it up. That's how racing goes, and that's how it's gonna go, and it ain't gonna be the last time. So I don't know. I felt like that after rewatching the race, and I kept watching it, and I was like, man, there's just no way in any shape or form that was Alex's fault at all. And I really think that Kyle, obviously he didn't do it on purpose. Incidents are gonna happen, and they've happened many times before in the pits. Why? Because it's freaking tight. There's no other way to put it. But I really, really, really disagree with that penalty. And those penalties can be really damaging to someone's championship, which I say they cannot happen. You can't be expecting, or I guess, an incident happen or whatever, and then a call like that be made and put you in a really delicate spot, either if you're fighting a championship. Those calls can be a lot worse than what Alex got, because yes, we're starting the championship right now. It's fairly early in the season, but that's a very damaging penalty that is going to penalize his championship.
I think it was, and you've nailed it there, Pato. You see people checking up, and I've seen people almost come to a stop and then have to go again to get back into their box. So from an onlooker's perspective, if anything, it was going to be either a racing incident or maybe Kyle was going to be pinged. But for Alex to get the penalty, I think it made everyone's jaw hit the floor. And I think Alex's reaction on the radio said it all. And let's hear from him now. What's your take on it?
I think Pato hit the nail on the head. So the big debate that came out afterwards was, there's no rule that says you have to use a transition lane, and that is true. And people pointed out, Kyle himself pointed out, other cars pitted from the high speed lane. The big difference is no one hit anyone. So it's okay, that's great, but that's kind of irrelevant. The incident ultimately was the incident, and that's what kind of ended our day. And so I don't hold anything against Kyle. Like Pato said, it wasn't intentional. Maybe, Brian Herta is also to be held responsible for maybe not giving him the information of what cars were coming out. Maybe he just told him that Scott was coming out, and he didn't say that I was also coming. Maybe, I don't know. But the bigger problem is what Pato touched on. The IndyCar penalty is really a confusing one. And then what was even kind of more of honestly a slap in the face was what came out Monday night, where they adjusted the penalty from an unsafe release. So an unsafe release penalty really is a penalty on myself, the guy that's on the radio calling me out of the box, and the outside front tire guy that's sending you. So that's kind of a group penalty, be better, pay more attention type thing. They adjusted it to essentially an avoidable contact penalty, which places all of the blame completely on me. So there is certainly a bigger issue that we need to discuss. The penalty didn't affect my result, so that's kind of irrelevant. But we need to all be on the same page as to how and why these penalties are being assessed and chosen. So that's really all I'll say on it. It was unfortunate because it ended Kyle's day. I mean, it didn't end his day, but it affected his day as well. You never want to see that happen on something that really could be avoided. But nonetheless, it was an amazingly positive weekend for the team. I think that, in terms of the performance that as a group we've shown over the first two races, is obviously reflected in Pato's results. But I think that, we've talked a lot, or at least I've talked a lot about how this team has grown so much from one year to the next. And not only is there new people, on my car and me, myself being new, but there's just new people all around the organization. And to be able to kind of integrate as well as we all have with only 3 days of testing before St. Pete, and we're 2 races in and everything's already starting to click in a really positive way, I think it's just a testament to the whole organization. I'm really excited for what the year has ahead for us.
I think you've nailed it there. A lot of talk about sort of Chip Ganassi, Penske dominance at Texas, but you look at the last few years, it's all about Arrow McLaren. I know, Joseph and Team Penske came away with the pot at the end of the day, but the pace that the team is showing as a collective with Chevrolet is really impressive. And just touching on that now, that mid race dominance, Pato. I mean, it was incredible. You lapped pretty much everyone bar Joseph. And at that stage, it just looked like there was nothing that was going to stand in your way. But as we know, this is IndyCar and cautions come thick and fast. But what did that feel like to be in the car in that middle stage of the race? You were so much faster than anyone else.
It was a joy to drive that race car, man. I mean, it's more than just me being comfortable with the car. I knew that we had a very strong car. I knew Joseph had a very strong car as well. But yeah, I was just working at it stint through stint. We kept making the car better with either, certain changes inside of the cockpit that we have quite a bit of tools to kind of influence what we wanted to do. Obviously, if it's out of the window, doesn't matter what you do, you're going to be miserable. But in this case, it was just a real joy to drive. And I mean, to be fair, I knew they weren't going to have a chance against me, to be honest, if we had full stints. I just felt really, really comfortable and very just very happy with the car. And that's very important in Texas. And I have the privilege of knowing what a winning car feels like in Texas. And it felt like that and more. And I think that little extra that it felt better was just because you could use multiple lanes. You could actually get through traffic. All the past few years, you would get to traffic and you'd be stuck. But the way that I was just able to navigate through traffic was ultimately what I think extracted the dominance out of just how good the car was, and how comfortable I was in it. But racing gods had other plans with yellow flags, which, I mean, at the end of the day, it's definitely not an excuse. I think that's what made the ending even more nail biting. Obviously bummed that we couldn't finish, that it basically ended 2 laps before, because I had timed everything perfectly. I knew we were going to get him. So yeah, I mean, that's what racing is, and that's what racing will be. And that's what makes it super exciting. But yeah, I think in terms of, how we showed up, and I'm pretty sure everybody watching knew knew we were there. It was not like bummer we didn't win, and like people are not gonna forget of that. Like people know, and it's just part of racing.
Yeah, we'll talk about the result in a second and your respect for Joseph Newgarden and that battle. But I've got a tweet here, and this is relevant to kind of both of you, because both of you have come from that open wheel environment, but just on the road courses and the street courses. You went to IndyCar having not had that oval background, but your oval start, 16 of them, Pato, you've got an average finish of 4.7 and you've completed 3,775 laps of 3,778. Now, that takes... yeah, I didn't come up with that stat myself. But that takes a huge amount of maturity and control, because driving on the ovals is something a little bit different. And then, Alex, you came from Europe, and the first time you jumped into an oval, yes, you tested at Phoenix and did various different things, but you went and won the Indy 500. Now, you can't just do that by luck. It takes a certain approach. And if you see people that take too many risks, they hit the wall. But if you see the people that are really in that zone and have that sort of mature approach and that controlled approach, you can see that the cream rise to the top. And it's relevant to both Pato and you, Alex.
Well, I mean, that's pretty impressive, that stat. That's why he's the oval king. He is the oval. He even had a crown in Texas. So not by his choice. But yeah, I mean, I think oval racing is very unique, obviously, to IndyCar. But it's really also about the group that you're with. I was very fortunate in my first years, obviously my entire career, but especially in my first years to have a really good package. At my previous team, I had amazing teammates and Ryan Hunter-Reay and Marco Andretti and Carlos Munoz and guys who were very, very strong on the oval. So I was able to learn from them. And I think that's what really helped me build a foundation and confidence on the ovals. A lot of guys maybe don't have that opportunity and have to start with a smaller team, and they get a little bit spooked by the ovals because the car's not very good. And so I think Pato and I are kind of similar in the sense that, we both came into it, well, except for his Carlin Indy 500 experience. But for the most part, I think we all had, a positive kind of start to our oval careers. And that just, it's a confidence game, man. Like there is a skill to it for sure, especially in the racecraft side of things, but going quick is just all about confidence in the equipment that you have.
And then who you're racing as well, because Pato, you talked about that respect to Joseph Newgarden, and obviously it makes it that much easier when you're racing somebody with that amount of class. He's daydreaming.
Sorry, typical.
He's distracted.
No, I think I mentioned it in the press conference. When you're going that fast, I was not fortunate, but I was very grateful that I was racing people that I had very high respects for. Not just Joseph, but Alex, Colton. They're guys that that you can, they're gonna push you. They know you are gonna push them, but you will always give each other enough room. At least in ovals, in road courses, depends on the situation. But I think Alex can also add to this. Like it makes you just have to be aware of who you're around. And at those last few laps, I knew I was around somebody that was going to respect me and that deserves my respect. So that's how it should be. When you're going 228 or 230 miles an hour, like, man, it's not a time to be playing around because someone can get really hurt. And no one wants to see a race end like that. So it's just all about giving each other the just the right amount of room and really racing hard, which I think the last few laps were definitely probably a textbook definition of that.
So is there an element of Pato 2.0 this year? We heard a bit of willpower 2.0 last year. Consistency is king. You were super chilled at St. Pete and very calm and collected again at Texas? Is there an element now that, moving into Long Beach, that's the Pato we're going to see throughout the year?
It's a long season, man. But I want to win. I want to win as much as anybody. We've been right there. We could have won 2 races already, and I just think that shows to the amount of work that the team has put in the off season. Like, this is not just me. I know I'm doing my job in a very. I know I'm performing very well, but like, my performance would be nothing if I don't have the tools to do it and to extract it. And I just think it shows to the hunger and the amount of motivation that the team as a whole has. And it's not easy to do when you're growing. There's been so much growth, not just in performance, but like marketing. I mean, there's so many new people, man, that we have to deal with, which is great. But I mean, I still don't know all the new names. Like, I mean, it's a lot of new people. And it's great to see. It's great to see the brand that just keeps on growing, and people want to join. People want to be a part of it. And I think that's, you can't buy that. That comes from either an engineer or a mechanic or someone in marketing or someone in leadership. It doesn't matter what department they're in, but that comes from the person, as it comes from the drivers as well. So it's just great to be a part of such a great group of people.
People want to be a part of a good thing, and you can really see that trajectory. Arrow McLaren is driving forward. Can I just finish with Alex, pros and cons leaving Texas, and then looking ahead, not just to Long Beach, but also it's the month of May coming up soon, and the next super speedway you're on is, of course, Indianapolis.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's getting close now. We're 3.5 weeks or whatever away from the month of May. There's very important races, obviously, between now and then, but we'll have our first open test here in a couple of weeks at the Speedway. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously, we all know it's the big one. I think that the team obviously, was close last year. I think there's certainly a deficit to be found. Everyone needs to find the deficit to Ganassi. But I think that, with the driver lineup that we have, with obviously Tony coming on board, the success that, the team had there last year, obviously the success that we've had so far this year, and all of the momentum, is building towards a really amazing month. So obviously that's the goal for all of us, to try and bring the team, its first 500 win. But Long Beach is right around the corner. And then we also have Barber and Indy GP before that. So that's 3 races that are huge for the championship before we get to the 500. But yes, it's certainly on the radar. It's coming up, and we're looking forward to it.
And you go well at Long Beach as well. Well, listen, Pato, Alex, it's been fabulous. Thanks so much for joining me. You can watch Pato, Alex, Felix, and the whole Arrow McLaren squad in action from the 16th of April at Long Beach. That'll be live for you on Sky Sports, but it's bye for now.
Thank you, Tom. Bye.